Western intelligence reports and analysts regularly mention that Russian military supplies are dwindling or have even run out of certain equipment, particularly ground combat vehicles, precision missiles, and artillery ammunition. However, less attention is given to the fact that although the Russian defense industry is undoubtedly in a difficult position due to international sanctions and the prolonged war, the Russian economy has proven to be adaptive to the sanctions environment. Moreover, the Russian defense industry has slowly started to transition to wartime production. Therefore, it is absolutely premature to hope that Russian weapons will suddenly run out, leading to a total collapse of the armed forces. Western intelligence agencies and analytical firms often discuss the depletion of certain Russian military equipment. It is evident that some weapon systems, e.g., tanks, are experiencing much higher losses than the Russian defense industry can replace in the short term. However, the total collapse of the Russian armed forces should not be expected anytime soon. Russian leaders have been consciously working for months to adapt the country's industrial production to a post-sanctions environment and significantly increase military production. A significant question is what capabilities the Russian military currently possesses and, more importantly, what capabilities it will possess in the long term, as it is clear that the Kremlin is planning for a war that will last for years. It is evident that in some weapon systems, the Russian military is consuming its reserves much faster than they can be replaced by newly manufactured equipment. For example, take one of the most discussed and rapidly depleting military equipment in modern warfare: tanks. The Oryx military blog remains the most reliable source for summarizing battlefield losses, as they are the only portal that corroborates reported loss numbers with photos, videos, and timestamps. According to their summary, 9,841 Russian combat vehicles, including 1,984 tanks, have been lost in the war so far. What Western reports predicting the depletion of Russian tanks often overlook is that Russian leaders intend to significantly increase tank production capacity. Russian National Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev believes that Russia will soon be able to manufacture 1,500 tanks annually. Russian President Vladimir Putin provided a more conservative estimate, stating that they would produce and modernize 1,600 tanks within 3 years, which translates to annually deploying approximately 530 tanks. This number, including modernization, could be realistic. One more point worth mentioning from Putin's statement is that the 1,600 tanks deployed would significantly outnumber the tanks NATO can send to Ukraine. Whether this becomes true depends solely on the leaders of NATO countries. However, it is a fact that 530 tanks per year is more than what Ukraine has received from its supporters in a year. The Oryx blog reports that Ukraine received promises of 735 tank deliveries from Western supporters within a little over a year, of which 504 have been delivered so far, a slightly lower number than what Russia can produce, according to Putin. The Ukrainian conflict has exposed the speed at which Russia has depleted its missile stockpile, outpacing the capacity of its military industry to replenish it. However, it's important to note that Russia's high-tech military missile industry has remained functional despite international sanctions, capable of producing hundreds of missiles annually. Although this production rate is insufficient to cause Ukraine's collapse, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has recently announced a significant increase in missile production. Russia's use of its air force has been notably cautious since the conflict's inception, due to various technical and strategic reasons. Interestingly, data from Flight Global suggests that the size of the Russian Air Force has not only maintained its size but even grown despite the ongoing war. In protracted wars, well-trained soldiers and high-tech weapons are typically the first to be depleted. In many cases, the outcome of conflicts is determined by how many poorly trained soldiers equipped with simple, easily manufactured, and usable weapons a side can send to the front lines. It's not uncommon for a country to run out of certain resources during an intense conflict. When a nation finds itself in dire straits, it resorts to unconventional solutions, such as the Volkssturmgewehr, the Arisaka rifle without a sight, or a bamboo lance carved for use against machine-gun-armed soldiers. The Allied victory over Nazi Germany, for example, relied on simple, mass-producible, and easy-to-handle weapons such as the Soviet T-34 tank, the British Sten submachine gun, or the American Willys MB. Russia's military-industrial capabilities have been calibrated for the production of relatively high-tech weapons and the modernization of old ones. Transitioning to the mass production of simpler weapons will take time, as no one has prepared for a conflict of this intensity in Europe in the past 30 years. However, Russia possesses the natural and industrial resources needed to mass produce and deploy simple, easily manageable weapons on the Ukrainian front if it desires. This transition, though, will take time. In the meantime, Russia may rely on foreign suppliers like Iran or North Korea to bridge the gap. Russia is unlikely to disarm as long as its rear and military industry remain operational, its troop reinforcements are ensured, and its population believes that Russia is fighting for its existence in Ukraine. The depletion of certain weapon systems, like Iskander missile systems, Shahed drones, or even Cold War-era T-72 tanks, will not cause the Russian armed forces to collapse. The main challenge for the West is to support Ukraine's armed forces without significantly diminishing NATO's combat capabilities. The most pressing question in the coming months and possibly years will be the need for a significant expansion of military production capacity in Europe, as 50 new Leopard tanks per year may not suffice to protect Europe against potential Russian threats while the active conflict in Ukraine drags on. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And be sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads. We appreciate your support and hope to see you again soon.